Welcome to the George Daly Auditorium. Campers, for those of you that were watching on the screen right above me here, yes, there is music on that. However, it's just not coming through our speakers here. So if you go back and take a look on YouTube, on the George Daly Community Television, you should have music with it. If not, please let me know. So we're working through a few streaming options that we're giving a try out here today. If you are in here for our shout-out ceremony in person, welcome to the George Daly. My name is Andy McGuire. I'm the education director here, and I'm very happy to see you all for our Week 7 showcase in the Tin Pan Kingdom. Now, we are going to go through our basic showcase materials, and as you see, we have a bunch of equipment up here and a larger screen where you can see things a little bit more easily as we're moving through the different sections. We'll come back to that in a little bit, which hopefully will not be as confusing as it looks up there. But we're going to start with our shout-out ceremony. So every week of camp, we take time to stop and say thank you and acknowledge some of the really cool things that we see our campers doing. And when we call them up, we're going to talk about what we really liked and what we really saw that they did. Over here next to Jay is one of our summer theater camp posters. They're going to sign the poster, so we've always got it with us. And at the end of the summer, we're going to make some space to hang it up in the lobby. So as we get through our season, be sure to stop in and find your campers' signatures. When we go through this, they're going to come up this direction, sign the poster, then come over and stand next to me. All right? And we're going to switch out with our other teachers throughout the day. We'll just kind of get through our shout out. So I'm going to start first, and we're going to start with Aiden. Come on up here, Aiden. Now, Aiden has been to camp nearly every single week this summer, and it's been a blast having him here. One of the things that has been a really great thing with Aiden this week is we're trying to work on what are the things that we can control and what are the things that we can't. All week long, we've been playing a narrative game, so it's kind of like a role-playing game, but there are a few things that are different. We've involved some other games within it, and we go through the process story one day at a time. And with Aiden, it was a good opportunity because in improv, we have this thing called the movie inside your head. It's what you think is going to happen, and you always are trying to work on what's going to happen with comparison to the movie inside your head. When you can't control everything, you kind of have to make peace with the fact that the story evolves differently. And Aiden, come over here and stand next to me. Yeah. Aiden's been working really hard at working the... Take a step back. Okay. We're learning camera spacing a little bit. And Aiden's been working on trying to be at peace with the camera inside of his head because there's a lot of elements that aren't necessarily inside of his control. And I really appreciate the work that he's had with that. Thanks a lot, Aiden. Woo! Woo! All right, head up that way. Susie! One of the things that we're working on this week also is a little bit of choral reading. Well, my group is working on a little bit of choral reading. And if you're not familiar with that as an art form, it's kind of like choir, but instead of singing, you are reading. So it's layering the different voices together. In fact, Ariana defined it as one group using their voices to tell a single story. We try and get the different voice types in there and layer them on top of each other. And one of the really great things that Susie brought to the table as we were working on this was she had some great depth of emotion with the story that we were telling. She could take what was happening in the story and bring those emotions back to convey them while we were retelling it through our choral reading. In theater, this is called emotional recall, and this is something that we don't really talk about in theater camp a lot because we consider it a skill as you're getting into your upper high school and your college stuff, but it was something that Susie did very naturally, and it worked out really great. Nice job, Susie. All right, Lorelai. This week, Lorelai did a lot of writing. At the latter end of the week, we all were working on different scripts for our 4 different groups, and Lorelai often gave up times where she was playing games or when other large group activities were going on to continue writing on their script. This was really great because I wasn't really aware that writing was one of Lorelei's passions until I was able to see this happening throughout the day over the past few days. And it's been really great. Whenever we have camper written material, we are really proud of it. So thank you for that hard work, Lorelei. Ariana. Ariana also did some heavier scripting moments this week. The challenging part for her is that she wasn't too familiar with choral reading as an art form. And so we had a YouTube video pulled up and we went through kind of the mechanics of what it was and talked about how we wanted to write it. And she did a very nice job of translating that art form into a script that we could use for all 4 of our characters. And the other thing I think she did particularly well is that she found pieces for all of her teammates to be performing really well within the story. So she kept the story inside the game working really well. She was able to write very well for the teammates around her, and she was very dedicated to learn a new writing style for this showcase. Nice work, Ariana. Woo! Woo! Asher. Asher this week was doing a lot of fantastic gaming work. I'm going to talk particularly about a game that we played today called VIP. Now, in this game, the team has to work together to get across the stage. Well, we have over here next to Brant, we have what's called a turret, and we have a bunch of socks, and they're trying to keep each role of their team. They each have a specific job. They're trying to keep all of those things straight while they cross the space. Or we give them an option. They can play on defense. So they get to throw socks at the teachers while we work across the space. And I think that all the groups that played defense got better throughout the day. But I think it was Asher's group and his coordination for giving directions to his group that kept us tied up the most and made the biggest challenge as we were going through. We were a little tired by the end of that round. And they worked really hard to communicate and have a plan for how they were going to make everything work together. Nice work, Asher. Woo! Woo! Alicia. Alicia's been to camp a lot this summer. I think many of the weeks that we have had camp, I've seen Alicia here. Now, last week we had a conversation about reading, and she seemed to be a little down about reading. I'm not sure if this was a conversation she had with her siblings or what had happened. She was really down about it. We talked about reading ability and how, well, it doesn't really matter what anyone else is talking about, but it really matters what you feel about your reading ability. And I asked, how do you feel? And she's like, pretty good about it. But this whole week, especially the past few days as we were getting scripts out, Alicia, you've worked really hard to be getting that reading even better than where you thought you were. And I really appreciate the hard work that you're putting in to make that skill better. My parents always told me that reading is the gateway to everything else. And so to take that extra time to feel like you're getting better at it means a lot to everyone around you. Thanks a lot, Alicia. Woo! Woo! Ruby. Ruby's a camper that has been coming to theater camp for many years now. One of the wonderful things that I'm starting to see with Ruby is that she's always been kind of a go with the flow sort of person, more in that she's always happy to be around. Theater camp and Ruby go together very, very well. But what I've noticed this week is that she's starting to create strategies that are outside the box and really trying to push the boundaries of how she's playing games and how she's presenting characters and how she is moving into sort of her own display of performance technique. And one of these days, I think we've said this a few times this summer, but Ruby's going to be a really fantastic director. She sees not just where her body is in space, but she sees how other people's characters fit within the space around her. And it's really interesting to see the anticipation as she's moving from point A to point B. And even sometimes, maybe a little bit beforehand, she's starting to give directions on, well, if you just moved here, we could do this. Or if you just did this, we could move there. And so I think someday we're going to see this turn into a really fantastic directing potential. Thanks a lot, Ruby. All right, I think I'm going to switch out. There we go.
Rotate. Hi, I'm Jason Tipsword. I'm one of the guest instructors this summer, down from Northeast Iowa and also from the University of Iowa. It was my privilege to work this week with the self-named Order of New Horizons and our story of a majestic airship. So first would be Molly Prendergast. Having Molly on the team this week was kind of like having a college intern on board. I will say during the first couple of days of gameplay, she spent most of the time with her face in her notebook, and I was kind of wondering if she was doodling. She was not doodling. She was taking incredibly detailed notes, which she then used to write 90% of our script. That's a fantastic thing because if she didn't do it, I would have to. So that was wonderful for me. In doing so, she showed me about 17 different ways to say big. I think Molly as a writer has a great deal of potential, just as a storyteller in general, whether it's on paper, whether it's spoken word, which you'll get to see a little bit of here in a while, whether it's as an actor. I know you also sing and do other things as well. But Molly was a great benefit to our group this week. So shout out for Molly. Lou. It can be intimidating as a storyteller having a participant who knows more about your story than you do. Now, we wrote stories this week based on a set of lore that was established last summer that I was not a part of. Lou has an encyclopedic knowledge of that lore. And so occasionally I found myself having to do a little bit of a step dance to try and work my story to still make sense, even though Lou would tell me, Lou would find ways to shoot holes in it pretty quickly or add to it sometimes too, to be fair. Lou did a fantastic job also of explaining all of these complicated, explaining all of these complicated things to the rest of our team and really adding depth to our story. She has a fantastic imagination to go along with her fantastic and encyclopedic brain. So a big shout out for Lou. Cora. Folks, Cora asks great questions, and great questions for teachers are almost always a good thing. Cora has a knack for asking questions that leave me going for just a few seconds, and those are the stressful moments of being a teacher or a storyteller or a game master in this case. But in a collaborative group, the ability to ask those questions that drive a story forward, that add detail, is a fantastic part of the team to have. So a big shout out for Cora, our question asker. Connor. Connor is the little engine that will. Connor is an endless source of energy. I, at one point, wondered that I might be able to jump my car with Connor. We have several jokes in our, I don't know if you're waving at me, but hi. We have several jokes in our piece about Connor's character finding a big red button and naturally pushing the big red button, regardless of what it may or may not do. Connor was a driving, hey, no, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's do something. Enough talking, let's act. Step back over here. There, we can see you. Wave to everybody so they can see you down there. There we go. No big red buttons up here. Connor is an adventurer at heart, and when you're telling adventuring stories, having adventurers with you is a fantastic thing. So shout out to Connor. Layla. Layla is our sneaky sense of humor in this group. She's quiet, she doesn't say a lot, but her ideas are definitely worth listening to. And sometimes it can be a little difficult because when you have a group of actors, it's rarely a quiet space. you got to listen for Layla's contributions because when they show up, they're going to be sharp and they're going to be fun. I watched, come on this side, right here. Over the course of the week, I think Layla got more and more involved in our story, had more to contribute to it, had more ideas as her understanding for the innate weirdness that is this set of stories, and really proved to be a fantastic team member for us. So a shout out to Layla.
Rotate. All right. Well, I'm Brant Bowman. I'm also a guest teacher here, and I helped out with Tin Pan Nights last summer during the pandemic. I did a section called Tommy Tinkersmith in the Land of Make Something. So I was really excited to jump into this and help this week. My group we were called the Flying Sushi Rolls for something that happened in the adventure that you'll learn about in a little bit. We had a challenge to save the seawall, which our last year's adventures were about building this seawall to save this kingdom, and then we had to again save all the years' work that we've done with this task. So to start shout outs, I will start with Noah. Come on up, Noah. It's my first time working with Noah. He was playing a character that had a lot of items and a lot of magical things that he had access to. And Noah did a really good job of trying to come up with creative ways to use those things. They weren't just the item on a sheet of paper. He could use them in neat ways to make new things. A magical lasso would become a zip line, for instance, and those were very a good way to think outside the box and to come up with neat ways to overcome obstacles. So very good job, Noah. Thank you. All right, next up, I've got Karissa. Come on up, Karissa. I will do the same joke I did last week. I've known Karissa for the longest of all of these campers. I've known her for 16 years because she's my own daughter. Stand up. Hey.
No hitting the teaching staff.
Hey, what are you doing? She did a really good job this. Go sign. Go sign. All right. She did a really good job of using her sense of compassion. She is always this way when she goes down a hall. She doesn't want kids to step on a bug. And in a game where sometimes there are monsters and bad guys that you come across, she is always advocating a nonviolent resolution. She is always sometimes sometimes it might get on other gamers' nerves, but she always wants to be someone who advocates for a peaceful solution, which I really enjoy. There was also a stretch where we did some riddles, as we were asked to solve some riddles, and there wasn't even a challenge because the way her mind works, I would ask the riddle and she'd just answer it, just instantly, as if she could see through my notes and knew exactly what they were. So riddles aren't even a challenge to her. So thank you, Chris. Next shout out, I got Kyler. Kyler, come up here. Kyler was a great person to get to know well this week. He really enjoyed games during our camp. He especially enjoyed the more active games that we did. We did a fun game called Pod Ball, which is, I couldn't even describe. It's just an amazing combination of handball and soccer and about everything else. And he really enjoyed those sort of games where he could be active. He also, it was great to have in our team. He used his imagination a lot to overcome obstacles. Great job this week. Okay, we got Mackenzie, come on up. Oh, Cameron, come on up. I did that earlier today too. No, you did it just to trick me. All right. Cameron, who I called Cameroon most of this week, she was our recorder during our gaming. She did a great job of keeping a diary of our group's great adventures. They were kind of like recorded in the voice of what I'd call a valley girl. You guys kind of, what do you call them now? Visco girls or whatever? Yeah, it's like I was totally with my BFF, and then like some flying fish came at us, so we chopped them up. But she did a great job of recording all the adventures so that it was much easier for me to write the script. And she was just really fun. She's got a great sense of humor, and I enjoyed her in my group. Thank you. And now, Mackenzie. Mackenzie is a good leader. She is especially good with younger kids. You will see in the middle of big group games, younger kids will kind of gravitate around her and she will help lead them. We do some games where you try to sneak across the stage, and she's always helping other people, and the kids just kind of gravitate towards her. She is a natural leader. Come on this side, please. And I really appreciate that about her. This is what's wonderful about theater camp, and I'm really seeing it from the inside, not just as a parent now, is what a family it becomes here. And she's one of the reasons why. She cares about the little guys as much as the kids that are her age. So she's just a great leader in the kids here. So I appreciate that.
All right, and one last shout out we're definitely going to get in because it is his last week teaching with us. Brent, could I have you go over and take a signature on the poster? Now, Brent Bowman has this really unique opportunity here. We were really excited to add him to the staff for the past couple weeks because he's got a tremendous creative imagination and he does a lot within the community and he brings a lot of that experience back. The other really unique thing about it is since both Lou and Karissa have been coming to camp as long as I've been here, he now has the opportunity to see what camp looks like as a teacher and with us the rest of the day, but also he's been out there where all of you are now. And so to have that sort of different perspective really added a lot to what was going on within our program. I really, really hope that we can steal him away for a few more weeks next summer, but I understand that vacation is going to come first going into next week. But Brant, I have so much loved having you here over the past few weeks, and I think that we really, I can't describe how fantastic it's been that you're here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so much fun. I would have done it for free.
Well, it wasn't for free. We did pay him. But everyone, let's give a great big shout out to Brant Bowman. All right. So before we move on, I am going to have our stream go to its in-between screen because I'm going to touch base with Jay and Brand about what's going to happen next so I can tell you what's going to happen. There we go. Okay, so for the Tin Pan Nights, just to give you a quick catch up on what's going on. Last year, during the pandemic, when we were doing mostly digital stuff with a few in-person stuff, the youth theater created a television show called Journey On. One of the pieces of that television show were the stories of the Tin Pan Nights. In fact, you can watch all of these on YouTube. I think they're on Facebook too, but on YouTube if you search George Daily Auditorium or George Daily Community Television. This week, we've been working with a type of gaming called narrative gaming. Sometimes you will see something similar to this in role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons or Fate Accelerated or some of that stuff, but we try to take a lot of the dice rolling and some of that other stuff out of it. So what we've worked with is our own universe that we started building last year and our own gaming system. So what you're going to see today are some previously on, is what we call it. So if you recall your favorite television shows at the beginning of the episode, they will give you a recap of what's happened so far. There are 4 adventures that we were going through, and what you're going to see today is our previously on. Now you have a little bit of your own choose your own adventure as audience members, because in a moment, our campers are going to go to different places in the auditorium. And you will have the opportunity, 1, to check out what you see and hear on the stream from the house where you're sitting now up on this screen. Or if you would like, we will give you the option to break out and head to a physical place with those campers as they're going. Now, if you have siblings that are not in the same group, as I know right here, your family does not, these aren't happening simultaneously, so you can go to one and then the other, or you can stay right here and watch one and then the other. All right. Now, when we put this together, we were trying to, and we're still trying to figure out how do we translate what we were working on at home and bring that television show series to what we're doing in the auditorium. So we've been playing with some TV spacing. We've been playing with some different locations to try and figure that out. So a lot of the things that you're seeing is still kind of in the experimental stages because we're a theater, not a TV studio. So I would recommend that if you have a challenge hearing, we can give you directions to where you need to go. And we're going to start with the first section of that. So if you are working with Jason Tipsword, campers, please stand up right where you are. You are going to meet down at that corner of the house. Anyone who would like to see that story, which is being filmed first, you are welcome to stay here, and we will be piping sound through the speakers. Or you can join them at that corner, and they will be performing in the lobby. They'll be performing in the lobby. Now, if you, camper, are working with Mr. Brant Bowman, we're going to come up onto this side of the stage. So family members, if you're looking to be there in person, you're going to be heading up onto the stage, where you will be going to the dressing room on the stage right side of the stage. This will be our second story in the showcase. Team, if you were working with Grace Marshall right over here, spot your campers up on this side of the stage. This will be our third story in the adventure. And they're going to be in this dressing room on this side of the stage. And if you had campers that were working with me, we're going to come up onto the stage and we're going to the black box. And that will be the fourth story in our adventure. All right? It's going to be the fourth story in our adventure. Ooh, a little out of focus there. Great. All right. If you do not know where you would like to go, I'm going to be over here, and you can ask me if you missed where your camper went so I can tell you where to go. All right? So, Allison, I'm going to turn this over to you to jump in between showcases, and when it comes back, you should be able to see and hear Jason's group Out in the lobby.
Tin Pan Nights, Tin Pan Nights.
Our story begins with our beloved Tin Pan Knights traveling over the land that was formerly the Inside Sea. In a balloon commanded by Captain Mishap, whose history is the best balloonist in the world, contradicts his unfortunate name, the Knights are mapping out this strange new land for the benefit of all adventurers. Suddenly, a looming storm obstructs the perfect flying conditions the Knights had been enjoying. The Knights decide discretion is the better part of valor and decide to leave weathering the storm to the professional Captain Mishap. The Knights bail out.
Parachutes.
Jules uses their quick feet boots to float to the ground. Nevada unfurls their cape and glides gracefully away from the imperiled balloon. Lou finds a parachute in the I've got that backpack and gives it to Harper and makes a second parachute for themselves. Harper skydives out and away from the balloon, successfully deploys the parachute, and lands safely. Lou dives away from the balloon, and their makeshift parachute works. They land elegantly. Safely on the ground, the four Tin Pan Knights take in their new surroundings. As the storm rages above and to the east, a thick layer of ground fog shrouds the pockmarked landscape. A resounding creak of metal on metal reaches the Knights' ears. They turn around to see a towering mountain that reaches into the clouds. They notice that there are thin steps that zag up the mountain. These steps look very new to the Knights. The Knights decide that they should climb this mountain and answer the call to adventure. Jules and Lou climb up, up, and up until they disappear into the fog. When Nevada and Harper lose sight of their comrade, they follow, carefully picking their way up narrow steps into the woods. Lou and Jules continue to follow the sound of creaking metal. As they climb, they notice a light above them. They reach the top of the stone steps, where a broad, rocky ledge stretches out in front of them. Lou and Jules hear voices, but can't see the source of the from. The Knights hide behind some wood crates and are soon joined by Nevada and Heather, who finish their climb. The Knights see two people wearing the uniforms of clockwork explorers, the knightly order of the Mountain of Nixon. However, there is something different about these clockwork explorers. Their uniforms are black. They wear dangerous-looking devices on their arms, and where their gear insignia should be, there's a skull instead. A steel pier extends from the side of the mountain, and on it is a submarine. Harper suggested that the Knights should talk to the explorers, and Nevada agreed. Lou decided to use their companion's distraction to sneak to the submarine and check things out. Jules waited in reserve. Nevada and Harper walked towards the explorers, who didn't notice them until they were close. Who are you? What are you doing? The explorers asked. Nevada and Harper tried to explain, but the explorers pointed dangerously crossbow-like devices at the two and set about restraining them. Harper and Nevada decided to cooperate and were led away. They soon come to a series of gargantuan gears. One of the guards presses a button, and the gears roll open to reveal another set of gears, which roll open to reveal a room with green lights. There are no windows, and only one door. Nevada and Harper are thrust inside. The door shuts, and they hear the gears thudding shut outside. Inside the doors, they find themselves in a massive hangar containing some kind of ship made of metal and wood. Sleek and dangerous looking, the ship appears ready to launch. Lou and Jules regroup and follow their friends. They expect Nevada and Harper must have a plan, since they allowed themselves to be captured so quickly. The Knights soon came upon gears much like the ones their friends had seen. Jules pulled out their tin can teleporter, but its usual natural hum was weirdly absent. Unable to open the gears in any other way, Lou pulled out a long crowbar, and the front pried open the ears to reveal it. Back inside, Harper and Nevada found themselves confined in a small windowless room. Sensing no nearby enemy, Harper used the phase shift button, dissolved, and passed straight through the door. Like a polite person, Harper opened the door to allow Nevada to also escape. Seeing a nearby air vent, the two knights wriggled in and closed the cover behind them. The air in the vent was thick with dust. The air was muggy and the metal. Below them, they heard voices, and people in the laboratories were poring over a diagram of an immense crystal-powered airship of the wide room. Suddenly, screeching alarm sounds. The people in the lab rushed out of the room. Nevada and Harper dropped out of the air vent and inspected the diagram of the wide room. In the corner was an oceanic blue crystal with evergreen swirls whizzing around inside it. Back outside the piers, Lou used the compass of necessity to figure out if they should go to the store, and there was a unanimous response from the compass. A banshee-like alarm sounded as Lou opened the door. Nearly a dozen clockwork explorers were standing inside. The explorers began to aim their crossbows, but Jules beat them to the punch. Swinging the jade songbird with an operatic burst of heavenly singing, Jules knocked two of them out of the fight. Harper and Nevada burst in, seemingly from thin air, and Harper flung their boomerang blade, knocking 3 guards unconscious. Nevada used their feet to knock over a guard and knock down another. Lou drew a sword from her I've-got-that backpack and skillfully took the fight out of one guard. But one of the remaining guards managed to level his crossbow at Jules. A lightning-fast spear spun from the crossbow and struck Jules square in the chest. Another spinning gear hit Lou, knocking them unconscious. Jules ran in with the quick feet boots and disarmed 2 explorers. Harper called back the boomerang blade with a commanding tap to the chest, and it ricocheted off 2 guards, defeating them. Nevada, a silent force, defeated yet another enemy. Groggy, put away, Lou realized that the best thing they can do for their team is get out of the way. So that's what they did. Jules drew attention with the utopic singing of the Jade Songbird and vanquished 2 more enemies. However, Harper was hit with a gear. Finally, Harper hurled the boomerang blade into the last guard, ending the fight. They tied up the captured explorers, and then Jules saw a gleaming, tempting, big red button. Unable to control themselves, they slammed their hand into it, and the gears slid open. Feeling a definite sense of anticlimax, the knights walked on. The knights decided to explore the mysterious airship and climbed a rope ladder hanging from the hull of the ship. They entered a ginormous, but empty, room. Wanting to explore more, the knights climbed up, up, up until they reached the broad main deck of the airship. They saw cannons, towering masts devoid of sails, and heavy pilot's wheels sitting atop the rear deck of the ship. Also, 4 contraptions sat in symmetrical locations around the deck. Though what they could be used for is a mystery, the knights noticed each contraption has an empty socket where a missing part must fit.
It's fine.
Not seeing anything else interesting, Harper and Nevada lead the knights to a lab. They examined the anomalous crystal. Wanting to find out more, Lou pulled a pickaxe out of their I've got that pack and swung it at the crystal. It rebounded with a resounding sproing. As Lou did this, Nevada noticed something fall out of Lou's backpack, the compass of necessity. They picked it up, and both the needle and the one needle pointed to the back of the hangar. The knights ran where the compass pointed, and they ran down an endless, winding, dark tunnel. Every so often, the knights heard a combination of skittering, repeated taps, instinct popping, and an ear-piercing whistle. Gradually, the light grew at the end of the tunnel, and the knights snuffed towards it. Nevada peeked around the corner and saw explorers chipping away at glittering, humming dancing chamber of crystal, just like the one they saw in the lab. An enormous crystalline spider lay dead upon the floor. An officer with an ornate gold braid surveys the scene, along with a mean, goblin-like creature with a tiny gold whistle around his neck. The chamber extended into the distance, and the knights heard more shipping farther away. Suddenly, the floor disappeared between the knights' feet and sucked in Jules, Harper, and Lou. Nevada was horror-struck for a moment, but then steeled themselves and cannonballed into the hole, landing on Jules, who gave her. The knights realized they had landed in a crystal spider web that tinkled like wind chimes. Out of the darkness emerged a spider, much like the ones the knights had saw, except this one was very much alive. Both had this air of reality. A tinkling voice inside the knight's head asked, "Why have you humans crawled into my web?" The knights burst out with explanations of how they didn't want to be there, and Lou explained how they found the passage pit, heard the noises, saw the crystals, and then the floor disappeared. Spider Queen was shocked because the crystals belonged to her people, and she believed that the knights stole them. Lou told her that the crystals weren't theirs, and it was the explorers who stole them. Then Spider Queen offered them a deal. If they brought her crystals back, she could leave them unharmed. She couldn't do this herself, because the mean goblin creature heard them with his whistle, because it created harmful vibrations. The knights agreed to try their best. As their tenants dictate, they must give aid to any enemy. Nevada suggested that they should steal the whistle from the goblin creature, and Lou pulled out an explorer uniform, put it on, and asked another explorer where the one who controls the whistle is. Klaus the Hobgoblin, for that is his name, was in his chambers below the lab. Lou gave everyone else a uniform so they could sneak into Klaus's chambers. Harper, using their face shield helmets, stuck their head through the door to find that Klaus was alone, and then they entered. At first, Klaus was confused, but as he became more agitated, he pulled out a long, curvy, malicious, menacing dagger. And the rest of the knights, expecting a fight, filed in and closed the door. Klaus slammed something onto his chest, and blue tendrils of light arced over his body. Suddenly, he grew 2 extra arms! He swung a punch at all the knights, and they dodged. But he grabbed at Harper and held them up in the air where they were powerless. Jules jumped up and landed on Klaus's head. He stumbled, gave a little ground, but remained standing, still grabbing Harper. Nevada swung the silent saber, but Klaus danced out of the way, doing an evil, malicious Macarena. Nevada tried to distract him from the silent saber with a winning smile, but it worked poorly, and Nevada was hoisted up into the air to join Harper. Lou whipped out the living lasso and lashed his hand, making him drop Nevada. Klaus then tried to cut the living lasso off, but he fumbled the dagger and dropped it. Jules and Harper threw their swords at Klaus, and when he tried to duck the boomerang blade, he hit the jade songbird, which responded with a triumphant fit of sparkling music. Nevada threw a halo case over his head, ripped the whistle off his neck, and Klaus gave off a terrifying roar of rage. Finally, Lou whipped their backpack off their back and whooped it over his head. He fell to the floor with a sound like a dropped cast iron skillet, and little bluebirds tweeted in a circle around his head. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and a gruff voice said, "What's going on in there?" Thinking quickly, Nevada imitated Klaus and said, "Just an aggressive tooth cleaning. I'll get that plaque off. It's the last thing I do." Heavy boots stomped away from the door, and Lou suggested that they give the whistle to the spider queen. So they put it in a glass of water, rendering it unable to be used. Suddenly, screams sounded from the other side of the door. The knights ripped off their uniforms, and Harper stuck their head through the door and saw rampaging crystal spiders, chasing clockwork explorers, trapping them with webs and shooting them with crystal shards. The knights saw the spider queen far, far down on the deck of the airship. The knights sprinted to the airship, running through chaos, spiders chasing humans, and then finally get to the airship. The Spider Queen started, but then relaxed, realizing who they were. The spiders came because they sensed that the whistle was heard from the wall, and came to fully reclaim what is theirs. Blue places the whistle at the Queen's feet so she may dispose of it. In thanks, the Spider Queen offered the Knights a bit. The Knights asked for the Queen for enough crystals to put in one of each of the ship's contraptions, so the Queen agreed. Placing the crystals in the 4 cradles, the Knights heard a hum of power run through the wyvern. Jules noticed the sea captain's hat and found a shining red button. Naturally, Jules pressed the button, and the wyvern began to ascend. Lou put the sea captain's hat on their heads and immediately knew everything about piloting the wyvern. The wyvern glided gracefully out of the secret mountainside hangar and into the morning sky. In the distance, the Knights saw Captain Mishap hanging by a slim rope from what was left of his boat. With a little teamwork and the use of the living lantern, the Knights rescued Captain Mishap and set course for home. But many questions remain. Why were all these forces building a war machine, a secret base? Who's in charge? Does Tommy Tinkersmith know about this? Most importantly, what are those 4 fast-moving flying machines Jules just noticed in the distance? Why are they heading straight for the wyvern?
This is the adventure of the Tin Pan Knights. Save the seawall. Our quest begins with our brave and noble Tin Pan Knights training in the Tin Pan Kingdom. Following their great quest to unite the kingdoms to build the great seawall and to return the Coyotes' kingdom. Their calm was disturbed when a great call of distress ran out across the air. Hurtling through the sky was Pin Pal, the first mate of the realm's only swashbuckling frog pirate captain, Flibius, from the pirate ship, the Burnt Sienna. Pin Pal was using a magical messenger feather to fly to our heroes, but as magic often plays tricks, she was careening out of control and about to crash. Our heroes jumped into action.
Oh man!
But that didn't work. So Lou tried the amazing lasso and caught her and saved her. Safely on the ground, Pin Pal delivered a message from her amphibian captain.
The seawall looks that we so hard. Been attacked by ogres. Help!
She explained how ogres were attacking the seawall. The knights decided to help and accepted the challenge. And they journeyed on to the burnt sienna to rejoin Phlebas the frog captain and sail across the starless sea to help save the seawall and to stop those ogres from their demolition duties. While sailing, a school of fish, flying fish, called cheeps, swarmed the burnt sienna. Jules devised a plan.
I'll run on the water and make a whirlpool and suck the cheeps in.
And he began running in circles. Meanwhile, Harper and Nevada drew their mighty blades and stood back to back on the deck of the ship, prepared to fight any of those flying fishies.
I got one! Cool! We can make sushi out of this. Oh, I got one too. This will make awesome sushi. I think that's the last one. Yep.
Their blades were true, and they made flying sushi rolls out of those cheeps. The next day, the burnt sienna was attacked by a red crabby pirate crew of man-sized crab pirates, led by their black-bearded captain leader, Captain Krabs the Terrible. I be Captain Krabs the Terrible. Lou used the living lasso to create a zip line from the burnt sienna to the crabby vessel. Then the whole team zipped across, including Pen Pal. Safe aboard the ship, Harper bravely engaged the fierce crustacean pirate captain with the boomerang blade. Har! Dar! Har! Har! Oh, you bumped me on me piratey head! Har! With a little bit of investigation, the knights discovered that the crabby pirates were starving, treated terribly by the abusive Captain Krabs.
How could you do such a thing?
Arr, I'm both a pirate and a crab. Of course I'm a jerk.
You're a disgrace to all pirates.
Arr, sorry. Oh,
Well, go walk the plank. Yeah, get out of here.
You're gonna-
Walk the plank.
you make me walk the plank? Arr, that's okay, but I will hunt ye from Davy Jones' locker.
I know.
Arr, arr. And that was the end of Captain Krabs. But the next day, as they approached the seawall, they found a man adrift on the ocean, clinging to a scrap of wood. Our team rescued him and learned that he was a guard of the seawall, but he was delirious. The eyes, the eyes, the eyes, he said. Finally, when the team arrived at the seawall, they saw 6 huge, mighty ogres pulling boulders from the wall and tossing them in the sea. But these ogres had mesmerized eyes. They were under the spell of something or someone that was making them act so strange. The team tried to attack the ogres, but the mighty creatures were very strong. Ooh. Oh. Boom, boom. Oh.
Time to go retreat.
The Tin Pan Knights attacked in the opposite direction and retreated back to a safe distance. Pen Pal believed she knew the source of that magical spell.
I bet the coyotes have something to do. Oh, yeah, and I bet you the coyotes have something to do with this. I'll go call them.
She believed the coyotes were the source of the magical spell. Coyotes were wolf-headed creatures. All right. Were wolf-headed creatures. They used magic and were known for being tricksters. She summoned the lupine-faced wizards by blowing the helping horn. But the coyotes denied any connection to the ogres, the spell, or the attack on the seawall. We know nothing of this. Why are you bothering us? Leave us alone. This angered Harper and Nevada. Why are you bothering us?
Rat.
What did you call me?
Rat.
Do not call us rats or you'll regret it.
Okay, rat.
We're mighty, mighty coyotes who have the secret of the magic. Do not call us rats.
Yeah, don't Okay, yeah, rat. don't mess
Do it one more time and you'll regret it.
Okay, right.
Abracapocus pocus canabra! You now have rat faces. They had learned the dangers of messing with the coyotes. Regrouping back on the ships, our rescued seawall guardian awoke and told a tale. He described a hairy sea bear living in a deep burrowy cave close to the wall. This creature had many tentacles and a growing yellow stalk on its head that made people mesmerized. The knights then used the beeping binocular to locate the underground lair of the beast, called the Entangler. Harper, still rat-faced, used the phase shift helmet to sneak into the cave. But instead of attacking this time, they decided to talk to the beast and learn why it was making the ogres attack the seawall.
Why are you making ogres attack the seawall?
Because that seawall destroyed my cave. It used to be watery and wonderful, and now it's dry and terrible.
But can't we make you a new home?
How would you do that? You fleas can't make me a new home.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Can we use that ship that the crabs abandoned?
Blow it up.
Destroy it.
Blow it up.
So we have a plan.
You could give me a ship?
Yes. And we will make it wet.
Ooh, that sounds great. I'll take that, yes.
We'll wreck the ship.
You do that, and I will have the ogres rebuild the wall. Deal?
Deal.
Perfect.
Deal.
No,
I'm mesmerized them after.
okay, I agree.
So it was a deal. The Tin Pan Knights had the ship sunk to the bottom of the sea, where the Entangler soon claimed it as his new lair. The ogres soon rebuilt the seawall and then returned back to their caves and their normal ogre lives. This only leaves two rat-nosed problems that we'll have to deal with in a future episode of the Tin Pan Knights.
Airing right now.
The adventures of the Tin Pan Knights have begun again. They were sitting around a campfire telling stories about their previous adventures when they got a letter from the Coyote Kingdom.
Wait, hold up on that story. I just got a letter written in gibberish.
Oh man, I was just getting to the good part. Don't look at me. I don't know gibberish.
So, what's it say? Wait, the letters, they're changing.
So, Nevada read the letter out loud to the others. It explained how the Coyote Kingdom was holding a magic competition for a special prize. The Tin Pan Knights would have to cross over the Chocolate River to make their way to the Coyote Kingdom.
I think they're tricking us. Let's think this through. Well, what are we waiting for?
And so, they decided to go to the competition and make their way to the Coyote Kingdom. On their way there, they came across the Chocolate River, where they decided to build a bridge and then tear it down so that other competitors would have to find another way to cross. During the competition, they came across a giant grasshopper.
I remember the grasshopper told us not to win by force, but by mind and wit.
Yeah, and those 4 sponge frogs? I had to make water the hardest thing I'd ever made.
How do we even make water?
By the clouds, of course. How else do you think I did it?
Enough about the water. Where were we? Yes. Harper made water. Lou pulled a big bucket out, and Nevada dumped it on it. Then, to defeat the frogs.
Then, they gave us a riddle.
I am the beginning of every end, the end of every place. I am the beginning of all eternity, the end of time and space. What am I? The answer is Eve.
After that, they ran into another chocolate river. But this time, instead of us having to build a bridge, we had to cross it barricade style while collecting graham crackers.
And then Lou got frozen. So me and Harper went for a graham cracker. We got it. I went forward and Harper went to the left.
As Nevada went forward, I went to the graham cracker that was closest to Lou. Jules managed to grab 2 graham crackers, bring them to one side of the river, and go back a little close to the edge for another cracker.
Harper gets the cracker, but then, dun dun dun, Jules falls in. In fact, Jules and Nevada are so close to each other that the crack in the frozen river that Jules made spread to Nevada, and he fell in too. Harper was the only one left, so the pressure was on her to grab the crackers and not make a single noise, which was kind of nerve-wracking, considering she was going through Creeksville.
As you can guess, we were all pretty nervous. She was only halfway there, but she made it across. Saved us all, and we made it across as a team.
Like they always say, teamwork makes the dream work.
I don't think anyone says that anymore. Yeah, me neither. Oh well. Well, let's not make a big deal about it and move on. Next, we had a secret disease person, but by dance fighting. Who in the world came up with that? And none of us could talk except for Harper.
Well, the people who came up with that were the Coyotes, of course. We were in the magic competition that they were hosting. They came up with all these little challenges for us to do.
There was only one song that me and Harper knew, so we decided to go with that. Lou helped by pulling out a huge dance floor from on the ground that she got out of her backpack.
Our mind power got stronger as we helped the diseased person. I hope they didn't get the disease again.
And then we came across 4 trolls, Gloria and Lane. They have twins, that's why there's 4 of them, who were very, very flashy.
I got some designer materials for Harper to make fancy clothes for the troll.
Then I snuck into the bunker with my face helmet and found this cool stone of far speech that whomever you speak to does not have to have the stone.
I can't wait to see how the competition ends. Will the Tin Pin Knights win? What is the special prize? Will the tricky coyotes pull a trick? Or is there actually a prize? Find out in the next episode of the Tin Pan Knights.
It'll come on. 3, 2, 1.
Previously on the Tin Pan Knights, a mysterious paper airplane flew into view.
And then rolled it into equally serious mouth.
This map was older than any other map we've ever seen.
We couldn't read the words on the map, but they looked into our language.
It promised us answers to the true history of Berwick. So we entered the call to adventure, starting by traveling through the Coyote Kingdom.
The Coyote Kingdom is ancient and mysterious.
Those who dwell in it are known to be tricksters and magic users.
They were spying on us. Well, we think they were spying on us.
We'll get to that. But first, in the Coyote Kingdom.
It was like traveling through a mirage. We built a playhouse, we camped out under the stars.
That weren't stars. They would move to tell stories and look at red eyes peering back at
were out on our adventures.
I don't like feeling watched.
It seemed like lots of things were following us, spying on us.
I don't like feeling watched. Then we met Teddy.
We found him on an oasis sometime in the middle of our journey.
We saw him drawing beneath a palm tree.
When we looked over his shoulder, he realized he was drawing us. He didn't look up or even acknowledge us.
Until he finished drawing. He told us he was sketching the things he found in the Coyote Kingdom.
I asked if he wanted to come with us on our journey.
But he still had some drawings.
So we drew with him.
But when we were finished, the oasis disappeared.
We tried to figure out what happened.
But there wasn't a trace of the oasis as we met.
So we continued on our journey.
Those eyes still seemed to tell a story.
But we still didn't understand.
And the next morning we had
It sounded like a stampede.
And at first we didn't see any animals.
but we found ourselves next to a bridge road.
That wasn't there before.
With a piano right before our eyes.
And when we looked to see where the road began,
We saw a whole parade of animals dancing along the road.
There were wolves and foxes, pigs and ferrets.
there were even dragons.
Although they looked a lot more like cats.
We tried to figure out where the road started. While we were doing that, the clouds started to clump together.
And we saw a huge flying lizard.
Which looked a lot more like a dragon you typically imagine.
I really wanted to ride the lizard.
So we tried to jump on it, but instead we missed. And a bunch of flying crabs were opinions barnacles peeled off the lizard's back.
They were holding little swords, and they had
Claws for wings. Claw wings?
Wing claws, they were very big.
While Harper was knocked out, the barnacles flew away.
Well, they danced.
Hang them away.
Penny saved my life that they killed me.
After
After
Teddy
Teddy
drew
drew
the road, it disappeared too. But not before we could mark where to go on the map.
Harper and Lou found a couple of companion creatures.
We found flying parrots, ducks, and chickens.
We camped out another night before we could set out on the dreaded
Chocolates.
River. That night, I saw a person dressed up as a cactus with a third side and a green nose.
We couldn't catch them. We think the cactus was spying on us, but it disappeared.
But not going to it.
Some things disappear when we draw them, and this disappeared on its own. No drawing required.
We set out the next morning. We set out on the
Dreaded.
Chocolates.
river.
On our raft, we were floating down the river, but were attacked by caramel wasps.
Their stings paralyze you.
We made it to our destination where we were captured by the ancient crocodiles.
They were abnormal friends. But they didn't trust Teddy. They called him the coyote.
They took us to the council, but before they could get any answers from Tenny,
More caramel wasps attacked.
Slice.
Sticky trap.
Tent!
Spaceship hit the ground.
We defend ourselves.
Slice.
Sticky trap.
Tent!
Tame ball.
We hold off the attack.
But we couldn't tame the wasps.
Then Teddy disappeared.
Some things disappear when we draw them, but Teddy disappeared on their own. No drawing required.
On our map, X marks the spot. Answers. Answers.
Answers to the drawings.
Answers about Tenny.
What's going to happen next?
Find out on
next
this
thrilling
adventure of
the Tin
Night.
All right. Now, while we have families that are moving around, if you are in a space you can hear me, awesome. If you would like to start moving back to the house, and if your campers would like to be heading to the black box to get your stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up from here. A big special thanks to all of our campers here, expanding the universe of the Tin Pan Kingdom for what it's worth in everyone's brains. If you think about what we were working on this week, we condensed about 4 days of story into what we were working at showing you today. Now, there are a few pieces of our story that some groups might still be finishing up and working on. You might want to catch them before you go. But as we are heading out today, I would like to say thank you to our teaching staff here, Mr. Brant Bowman and Jason Tipsword and Ms. Grace Marshall and Allison McGuire, who are helping us out. And then also at the George Daly Auditorium, we have Erica Smith, our operations manager, and our executive director, Mr. Randall Wright. And finally, I would like to say thank you to all of you families. We are doing something kind of weird and crazy, and we were talking about Strange New Worlds all summer long. I really thank you for going on a really strange adventure all over the auditorium and testing out some brand new theater stuff with us today. So I hope that you all have a really wonderful weekend. We have one more week of camp left, and that is our Wizards camp. So all our campers here were knights. Next week, come back and be a wizard. It's our games camp. So it's games, games, games. All day long, we hit all of our games that we've created, some traditional theater games, and a little bit of everything in between, as well as going to our wizarding world of the North American School of the Magical Arts. So if you are a fan of wizarding, this would be the week for you. If you also are looking at one of our snazzy t-shirts, our GDY t-shirts, they are available for sale out in the lobby. But really, thank you all so much. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. We hope to see you next week. And as always, journey on.